Hello and welcome to the More Cheese Less Whiskers podcast. My name's Dean Jackson, and today we're talking with Dr. Kevin Dobrynski in Oak Brook, Illinois. And we had a really great discussion because Kevin has a great desire and a heart for helping people with depression and anxiety. And he's had some personal experiences of really going deep into that. He's learned some really amazing things that get really great results for people. And we talked about how to approach something like this, where you've got something that could help, millions of people ultimately all over the world. Anybody who has depression and anxiety is part of your audience. It's a global thing. And we talked about how to rein that in initially to really focus on a local market. We talked about how, focusing from an epicenter first and then going outward can really make a difference. And I'll let you listen in so you can see how we actually came to that thought. And we spent a lot of time really thinking about how to optimize and document this protocol. So I think you're really going to enjoy it, especially if you've got something. I think you can think as an analog here to anything that you've got that can help people. You could just take out the depression and anxiety portion of it and listen to the context of what we're talking about, because it would equally apply to what you're doing. Okay? Have a great enjoyment of this episode. Kevin.
Mr. Dean Jackson.
Or Dr. Kevin, I should say.
Oh, Kevin works.
Okay, good. And how do we say your last name?
Yeah, that's a tongue twister. It's pronounced Dobrynski.
Dobrynski. Okay, so that middle Z and stuff is silent. All right.
Yeah, a little tricky.
All right. Well, welcome. I'm excited. I've got done one More Cheese Less Whiskers conversation already today. I'm in my comfy chair. I got my tablet. I'm fully hydrated and I'm ready to scheme.
I love it.
Why don't we start with maybe we could hear the Dr. Kevin story, and then we can see where we can go from there.
Sure. Well, I don't want to bore everybody. And by the way, I appreciate you having me on. And I'm looking to get some, not only insights for you, but also try to provide some value to those that are listening. Just really who I am. That's why I'm here, is just to try to help those in need. But so my story it's rather long, but I'll try to make it fairly short.
Okay.
Back in, I think it was 2008, I was at my first marketing seminar, and I think you know this guy. His name was Eben Pagan. So this was the first marketing seminar that I attended, and I learned at that point from Eben that, God, I have to learn this copywriting thing. From there, it snowballed into going to a John Carlton seminar and diving into copywriting, and I did some work for a guy by the name of Drayton Bird pro bono for a few months.
I know Drayton. Uh-huh.
Yeah. What a great guy.
Yes.
So knowledgeable, great sense of humor. And so I really fell in love with this marketing thing, and it came in handy because in about 2009, a year later, my wife had suffered from thyroid cancer. She had a full thyroidectomy where they pulled her thyroid out. And, mainstream medicine's answer is basically, and she had full-blown Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder, which your body attacks your own body. In this case, it's the thyroid. So we went through the medical system here in Chicago because we've got great teaching hospitals. But what I realized very quickly is that they didn't have an answer for this. And my wife went downhill really, really quickly. And so I had really to find an answer. I wasn't an expert in this space at the time, but I became one overnight just to help my wife. And so we turned her around in about 6 weeks. And I realized then that she can't be the only one with this problem. There's got to be a lot of people that have this issue. And it turns out there were millions of people that have thyroid condition problems.
Yes.
So at that point, I put this program together wrote my first ebook, and then I dove into selling it online via Google AdWords. I woke up
Yes.
one day and it was the greatest day, and it turned out not to be the greatest day because I found out that I had $300 in my account from selling ebooks overnight, but at the same time, Google shut my account down. Because, yes, because
Yeah,
I was
you were
using this.
10 years too early. Too
Yeah,
late, I
I
mean.
was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was using this very aggressive copywriting, of course, that I learned, and I didn't understand a lot about, some of the policies, et cetera. So then I jumped online through Facebook and was very successful in using Facebook early on as well. And I basically just took the title of, by the way, at this point, I decided to get my reach, to expand the reach to help more people by publishing this book called The Hypothyroid Diet. And so I started an online program to help people a little more hand holding and get in depth with this program. And so I used Facebook, and basically I took the title of my book, which I tested before I even published it, and I drove people from Facebook to a lander in which basically I told my story, and then they had to click over to another page, which was essentially a VSL selling this $47 program. Long story short, I was pretty successful in that. I was able to put $1 in, get $3 out. And then, of course, Facebook went through their algorithm changes, and I got a little frustrated. Anyway, I kind of got out of the business in that sense, took a hiatus, and I also had a brick and mortar business, which I have sold. But recently, about a year and a half ago, I went to work for a gentleman I think you know, by the name of Dr. Daniel Amen.
Okay, yes, I know Daniel, yeah.
Yeah, so he opened a clinic in Chicago, and he wanted me to come in to do essentially their marketing. But I was also a practitioner, and he says you could see patients if you'd like. And so it was a great opportunity. Now, through the course of this last 3 years, in about 2015, to go back a little bit, I was dealing with bouts of depression and anxiety and a little bit of fatigue. And so these episodes would last, about a day, and it would be 2 days out of the week where I would have these. Now, I wasn't dealing with any loss in my life, right? This wasn't a mental issue, it was biological, and I knew it. And so luckily for me, then I tried to find some answers for it. And then when I started working with the clinics, Daniel says, do you want an image of your brain? And so I was a little apprehensive because as a kid, I had ADHD, and I was very, very impulsive, and I played football for 10 years and suffered a number of concussions. So I thought about it, and I said, well, I've got to get to the bottom of this. And I go in, and we do the brain spec imaging. And Daniel looks at it, and he says, what did you do to your brain? And I says, well, I said I played football for 10 years, and he was a little upset at that because he's not a fan of what it does to your brain. And so we saw some of the damage, and long story short, he wanted me to try a couple products, to help what I was dealing with. Now, because I'm a natural healthcare practitioner, I eat a very clean diet. I sleep 8 hours. I meditate. I do all the things necessary. So I didn't think it was really going to work. But lo and behold, these episodes that would last a couple days out of the week went down to having 1 in 30 days, and then they were gone. However, they slipped back a little bit, and I did a little bit more investigation. I did what they call an organic acid test, which looks at metabolites in the urine, and I found out that I had a bacterial infection in my gut. I was asymptomatic, so I didn't have any GI issues, but what this bacterial infection does is it inhibits you to essentially make your happy hormones. And once I took care of that, I was able to deal with, and I didn't have the anxiety or depression anymore, which was phenomenal. But here I am, a guy, 40 years old, in my 40s, suffering from this issue, and I have all the background knowledge to help myself. That's how I did it. But I'm thinking about these millions of people that suffer from this issue of depression and anxiety, and they're being medicated, and there's a time and place for that. And the same thing with therapy. There's a time and place for that. But when people are going for therapy for months and years on end and medication, we're not getting to the root cause. So I have a real passion for this, and my focus is to go out there and to help these millions of people that are suffering.
And so how will you help them? What do you offer them?
So I have a strategic approach to using these very conservative and, natural modalities to help them. I mean, things as simple as using diet. And there's an acronym I have, which is called DIGIT. We look at deficiencies. We look at infections. We look at things like trauma. We look at toxicity, and we look at inflammation. So, it's a step-by-step approach. And so my focus really is eventually I will put out a publication, but I know most people don't read books, even though I think it is a phenomenal marketing opportunity, right, to get people in the door and to, I think, start to work with you on a very easy level. In fact, my book, The Hypothyroid Diet, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to help the thousands of people I've helped. So
Right.
books, by the way, and I know that you do that. It's a big part of what you do, and I think it's a great resource. But for me, I'm trying to get up and run really quickly with this. And so my focus is, and I've done programs before with the thyroid conditions, and I know a lot of people don't finish the programs, go through it. So I want to actually create a community and a monthly membership platform where people can start, we can do a very simple, low barrier, no brainer offer for $1 in which people can go in for a week and get a quick win or at least some discoveries. And then month by month, just allow them to continue the training and then stay in touch with us, get community support, and we can do Q&As with them as well. And so, that's at least my focus early on. And then, of course, we can take it to the next level. But, I want not only to reach millions of people, but I also want to make sure that, what I'm doing is really the best possible thing to get them to take action and keep them accountable.
All right. So one of the things, like what always draws my attention is that the conversation that we're having right now, like your immediate spot, we talked a little bit about who the people are, who we're trying to approach. And then the next level of the conversation is about the packaging of it, right? A $1 trial and a monthly membership and all these things without, I want to hear about the solution first, right? So when we talk about it, if we take somebody like that, it's a broad group. There's a lot of people who suffer from depression and anxiety, and feels like they're two separate things even, that some people can have anxiety without depression. Or are they always linked? Do you treat them as one thing?
About 50% of the time they're linked.
Okay. All right.
So, but yeah, the focus is depression. I say anxiety because a lot of those that do have depression do have anxiety, but really the focus is depression. And to really narrow it down even more, I'm going to be starting with really the low-hanging fruit and this group of people that are very susceptible to this, and it's the same group of women that I've worked with before because thyroid conditions affect women a lot more than men, and it's typically these women in their 40s that suffer both from thyroid conditions and depression.
Okay. And so that is cool. Now, when you look at it, if we were to take one person like that, what's the best outcome that you could create for somebody?
Well, first of all, is to,
and what do they have to do? Like, what would be your go-to protocol for it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Years ago, they used to look at depression as being, this chemical imbalance, and they're looking at serotonin. However, today, if you look at the research and the literature, depression is an inflammatory condition. Okay. And so one of the biggest bangs for your buck when it comes to reducing inflammation, again, there's other things involved, and this is the area of where research is right now, is literally just starting with food, and starting to help people evaluate food sensitivities to stabilize blood sugar. Those are two of the biggies in how we can get a quick start for them, is starting with, inflammation in food.
Wow. Okay. So all of those things that create I'm so getting people to switch to whole foods as opposed to processed foods and inflammatory things, right?
Right.
Grains and all that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, and what else?
So looking at that is a biggie. And then also starting to look at deficiencies. There are some very common deficiencies that people have that have depression. These are B vitamins, 612. It can be folate. It can be fatty acids. It can be amino acids and magnesium, zinc. So it's these handful of nutrients that people are missing, and it's very difficult to get them through food. And so, one of the thoughts that I have, because I have access to a lot of products, nutraceuticals that deal strictly with practitioners, is to give access to these individuals at another tier if they want to access these products at a discount, so they can start working on these deficiencies. You can go ahead and you can go through some testing, and I think that's going to be, I'm going to hold off on the testing for those individuals that want some more hand-holding and maybe some one-on-one help. But, looking at testing, there's a cost associated with it. There's a cumbersome associated with it. And most people are deficient anyway. So looking at these deficiencies and giving them access to these nutrients is another step and another piece of the puzzle.
Okay. And so that's part of the protocol. So food and nutrients.
Correct.
And what else would there be?
So along with that, there is going to be, obviously, exercise is a big part of the puzzle as well. We know increases what we call BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is fertilizer for the brain. And so between this physical movement and other things such as, meditation, we know definitely improves the brain. So these are some of the actual physical movements, or what we call exercise, to actually help people with, depression. So that's another piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. And so what, how quickly does this work for someone? Like, what would be the outcome that somebody could get?
Without hesitation, of course, case to case, it's much different, and that's why you have to use multiple modalities to help these individuals. But I mean, without a doubt, there are people that can have a real quick win with less than 30 days. Within a couple of weeks, I feel very confident that we can help people doing that, because I've seen it happen in the past with other conditions.
Mm-hmm. And then it would just be a matter of that they have to stay the course then with whatever.
Well, not only stay the course, my focus really, Dean, is to take people that are in this situation where they feel, where there's desperation, to take them from desperation to an area where they're determination, and then to a point where they're actually dominant or really dominating their life, really to help them through this whole transition. And, that's part of my goal. Mm-hmm. And so we would start with obviously getting them out of the situation they're in, and then using things such as, what people focus on, right? And so what I call them is the 4 F's. We talked about 2 already, which was food. The other one was fitness. Mm-hmm. The other one happens to be your focus and using mindset to help people get to the next level. And then if people are struggling, there's going to be a certain subset that are going to continue to struggle because some of these simple things may not be helping, is to use the other F, which is functional medicine, and some of the modalities, testing, et cetera, that we can use in functional medicine to help them.
Mm-hmm. And so this, I'm just trying to get a picture for, the result that somebody could get. Like if you're looking at it, what would be, is some of it, is what you're teaching them something that could be taught in a shorter period of time, and then they stick with it? Or is it something that there's multiple steps to it, that each new piece of information is bringing something new.
Yeah, there are definitely different steps. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
there's this area of one thing that I didn't bring up, I'd mentioned early on, is, looking at genetics.
Yeah.
Right. Most people don't understand it. They don't understand that they have what they call genetic SNPs, like I did. It's a piece of the puzzle for me. And so it's really this long-term educational process. Yeah, we can get them to have early wins. And, I can put together probably a program. And honestly, it's one thing I thought about is that I'm starting with this build it as I go, starting this program, and then I can sell it as a one-off. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, because what I'm looking for is like, what does it take to literally get the result before we start looking at how we package it and price it, is to look at what's the actual requirement. If I gave you 10 people and said, we need to get a result for 8 of these 10 people here.
Yeah, so we first start with the inflammation part, which is food-based, right? And then we look at deficiencies. And again, for me, it would be adding supplementation to the program and what they're currently doing. We could cover genetics. That's just more information for them. But then there's a point where we have to look a little bit deeper, which, can take longer, which is looking at possible infections or toxicity. But that quick win comes with the exercise, right? It comes with
how difficult is it to look for the toxicity and infections, or whatever you had talked about, doing that urine test? Or
it's not super difficult. Kits are mailed out to people's home, and they literally pee in a cup, or what have you.
Or they could do it on site or whatever with you if they were there. You're thinking about that. This would be a thing that you could do at your clinic or remotely.
Yeah, this is something that I'm focusing on doing remotely, just to expand the reach.
Okay. So, part of the thing that what we look for here, right, is that before, you're in Chicago still?
Correct.
Yeah. So part of the thing is, if you're going to help all the people in the world with anxiety and depression, you may as well start with helping all the people in Chicago, right? It's this fallacy of the bigger pie concept, right? Where if I've got this broader reach, I just need to get a fraction of them, right? But I'm saying that if you take all the people within a 10-mile radius of your clinic there and help eradicate anxiety and depression from there, that's the intensity. That's sort of the best laboratory that's going to make it really fly, right? Because part of the thing is to create a protocol that can become, renowned, right? And part of that is being able to get and document the results for people. And my fear about just like starting with diet and stuff as general things doesn't feel like, to somebody in depression, almost feels like if the first thing were testing to give somebody a snapshot or a blueprint of what's causing their depression and anxiety. Like if it is inflammation, if that's true, what are the markers that indicate that they have this inflammation compared to people who have gone through your protocol and don't have the inflammation and therefore don't have depression? Like you need to think about it as this journey from somebody shows up at your office and you benchmark them on the quantitative things that are visible and measurable that you can do, as well as sort of quantifying the qualitative things that they have of their self-reporting of the feelings of depression, the frequency of the depression, the things like that, where you can really do a pretty comprehensive snapshot of what their state is right now. And then after taking them through your protocol, to show people at the 30-day mark, at the 60, 90-day mark, where now what would be the markers of inflammation that you would measure? Just, a few.
Sure, yeah, like homocysteine and C-reactive protein. We can look at hemoglobin A1C. So yeah, blood sugar and inflammatory markers. Yeah.
Okay, so now if you humanize those, making them not sound like
no, I get you.
Yeah, tests. So here's the thing: if you're looking at it, that it is the inflammation rating, right? Like if somebody's CRP is this and somebody's A1C is this, and you can show that on a scale, on a range of what acceptable levels or optimal levels are. And what you're doing is, so if everything that you're doing, if the protocol that you're suggesting is with an eye on moving that, so if somebody knows coming into the journey that of course you're depressed and of course you're anxious, because look at you, you've got this, you're inflamed on all the markers that we do for inflammation. You're at the top level of those. You've got this, infection, or, we could say we can rule out infection if it's not that, because you've done the test. So people get certainty in the answer of why you believe they're depressed and anxious right now, right? Why your clinical diagnosis on paper is, of course you're depressed, anxious, because you've created that environment here in your body. That's what is manifesting because of all of these numbers. These numbers all prove it. Now, here's what we need to do is we need to get this CRP. We need to move that from what to what would be a expectation that you could create. Or your A1C, we need to move from this to this. And how quickly can we affect those to get them into a healthy range,
Makes total sense.
So somebody wants to come in for answers, right? I think that would be the thing, that at least now I know why I'm depressed. Because so much of the things about the way we as a society treat or think about depression is it's a mental thing.
Right, exactly.
And you're saying that it's a physiological thing.
Yes, and actually trying to come up with some of the verbiage so people can, when they see that, and they're like, aha, it's just like, the work we do in our clinics, right? We hire psychiatrists to come in, and, my background is natural medicine, and what we do is we deal with the people that have already been to multiple physicians, they've been on multiple medications, multiple diagnoses. And so these are the tough cases. And that's when we start doing the brain imaging, and that leads to the next test and to the next test, et cetera. But I guess, for me, because I start with, and our doctors will send patients back to me, and I start with the basics, and I start looking at food, right? And these things that we just talked about. And so my thought was, go for the quick wins, and let's just start with that.
I think you should. It feels like you should go for the quick, comprehensive diagnosis. That alone is going to give somebody hope that it's not just like it's not just a suggestion of, well, if you ate better and exercised and meditated a little bit, that would bring you out of it. It's without the real reason for it. That is going to fall probably on deaf ears, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not there's no, like, it's just good advice, right? It's not specifically medically, you know, protocol advice.
Yeah, that's interesting, because how I looked at what I was dealing with, it wasn't until I put all the pieces together. I knew what my genetics were, and then I saw the damage from some of the concussions, and then I had the test, and it was just like, aha. And I guess my question is, how do I do that? I guess. And I know we're sweeping around, coming back to, you'd mentioned starting in Chicago, but if I'm going to, let's say, just try to service more people, how would I take a model like that and just make it, I guess, accessible to people wherever?
Well, you've got to prove it first. This is the thing. We're at the stage where we need an N of 1 study, and then we need an N of 10, right? Where you got to take this protocol first. You got to have a flagship, your evidence. You've got hypotheses right now, and you've maybe got anecdotal evidence that somebody who eats better and does all these things, that they're saying that they got over their depression and anxiety, but that's not the same as being able to quantify it with markers that say, if you follow this protocol, this is the outcome that we're able to get,
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is start with the minimal viable testing to help people. And
I want to start from not necessarily the minimum viable testing. I want to start with the most optimal testing, the thing that is going to help you 100% certainty get, or as close to that as you can, get a really good understanding of actually what's going on, right? And we're not trying to make it easy. I'm trying to make it certain.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. So at first, right, I want to start with, let's put aside, this is where these logistics goggles come in, and we start trying to fit a solution into a $1 trial and $39 a month or whatever, right? We're trying to get a solution that would be manageable at that level. And what I'm saying is, let's forget that for now.
Sure.
Let's get to a point of, what would it take to 100% solve this problem with certainty for somebody, right? And enroll people in being the lead, patient one of this to show it, and then start thinking about, well, how can we replicate it? I mean, we're talking about the scientific method here, basically, right? We've got a hypothesis that this protocol that you've identified can, and you've seen it happen, present a better result, an outcome for somebody. But what you haven't done is document it in a scientific way, right? That it's duplicatable. And so I think that starting with, regardless of what it costs, what does it do for certain? And then we can start taking out things that aren't necessary,
Yes. Yeah, I get it.
Working backwards and starting with the people, because there are people who want to, solve it for good. And if there's something, if you can create a protocol that is, then would be insurance approved, if you can show the things that this is that you're able to get that outcome, and it might be a savings for them on approved antidepressants and medications for life,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Starting with that initial model, we would have to definitely dive deeper. Again, looking at those other things that I've mentioned, looking at the deficiencies and the toxicities as well. So, it would be some additional testing without a doubt.
Right. And so what would that kind of thing cost to do, like those tests?
Yeah, now ballpark figure, you're looking into, over probably $1,000
Yeah.
between, yeah. So,
Right. And so but for somebody who's, who suffers with depression or anxiety, or someone whose loved one, suffers from depression and anxiety, it would just be, that would be nothing to be rid of it, and that sort of thing do that would solve the situation with certainty.
yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, that's essentially who comes to our clinics, because it's that the price point then is actually, it's closer to 4,000 for them to do,
Right.
multiple images, and then, go through this whole battery of
Yeah.
the testing, and sit down with the doc. Right.
Yes. And that's really, then you've got the the lighter protocol of that is based on then evidence-based stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
Now you're saying, so even if we don't do the testing, listen, we've tested all this number of people. Here's what the things in common, the markers of depression and anxiety, the makeup, just like, through experience. I mean, just like what Daniel has done. You guys have seen it. You've done enough brain scans that there's another one of those, right? The different patterns that he's identified, that all people who have ADD have some form, this ring or this activity or this low activity here. There's always something, right, that they can look at the brain and see. He can tell you what's going on.
Right, exactly.
By looking at the scan. And I'm saying that you're taking an riding look at the environment that creates that depression. And if you're looking at it, that you can almost think about it as creating a proprietary blend of markers that could be an index on their a depression index kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's that environment within the body, just as you mentioned, and having markers. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I have this model.
Because I imagine that the chemical imbalance or chemical recipe to create depression is different than the chemical composition of anxiety.
Yeah, it's based upon, it could be one and the same, but that's where genetics come in, right?
Right.
If people have certain genetics, certain SNPs.
Yeah. And that's so that kind of thing, where creating that kind of a protocol and documenting it, it's almost like you're over investing time and energy into the prototype, creating this as the prototype, documenting it on everything, and being able to show the progression, like this is what happens in, on some of these, first, if you do the comprehensive, like, workup, I think that certainly for somebody to see that and look at that and just have at least an answer that it's not all in their head, that's going to change people's physiology.
Right. Yeah.
And so, without doing that, it's just like, it's just advice, and they're not really 100% invested in making the dietary changes and exercising. If they're doing it with a scientific, like, a reason for it and an outcome that we're working towards and measuring, And they can see the progress, that if you're showing them that these 8 markers are going to show, like, so you go down and you're looking at your A1C is at this, your CRP is at this, your hemoglobin is at this, your whatever other markers you do. If you do the infection testing, you're clear on infections. You're perfect on that. It's not an infection. It's not this toxin that could be creating it, or it is, and if somebody, by looking at those 10 things, or however number it is, that would be create an index for them that gives them a reason, that you're able to say, of course you've got depression, this is why, but then this is what we need to do, is we need to get that number down here, or we need to raise this number here, or whatever, if it's up or down, whatever the thing is, and that here's the things that we need to do that, and we can do it in 30 days, in 60 days, in 90 days, whatever it would take, and if they can show the progression, and sure enough, here we've got now, this is what happened, right? You're documenting the whole thing like it's like a case study. So you do it. Mm-hmm.
And and the nice thing about that, even though it makes complete sense, right? Because obviously it's now, not only can you show people why they're having their issues they're having, but there's more insurance that we're going to get to the root cause and have the outcome that they want. And what's nice about it too is you could do this remotely. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be in Chicago.
No,
we can do this in Toronto, or what have you, down in Florida, just by getting you what you need. Yes.
But I'm saying that part of the thing too is, by doing it right there, you're also going to then constrain and will amplify the marketing around it, because if you're trying to, when you take the globe, the world, as you're trying to get the message out to the world, you've got the opportunity to probably convince 100% of the people 1% of the way, whereas if you take, 1% of the people and convince them 100% of the way, that's what we're looking for.
That's interesting. Yeah, you start in actually Chicago's not a small market.
That's what I'm saying is, why are you so down on that? It's like, are you in a suburb of Chicago, or are you in specifically Chicago?
No, I'm in the suburb of Chicago.
Yeah. So what suburb are you in?
So I'm right near Oak Brook, actually. That's
okay. So Oak Brook, nice area. Yeah. So I've got friends in Oak Brook. So when you look at Oak Brook, and you just say, like, imagine if your protocol limited you to the boundaries of Oak Brook, for instance, just as a thing. Do you think there are any depressed and anxious people in Oak Brook, Illinois?
Oh, I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too. Right.
Right. It's probably half the population of Oak Brook, for crying out loud. But
what if by doing that you really focused on getting the word out in Oak Brook, like you're running for mayor, like you are the leader of the Stamp Out Depression and Anxiety, party. And your mission is to rid Oak Brook of depression and anxiety. And what if it was so successful that there's a New York Times article featuring the happiest place on earth is Oak Brook, Illinois. There's no depression and anxiety.
Wow, that's so interesting. What a take on that. It's great.
Right. But that's kind of the intensity, or the thing that you can do, because right now we haven't taken it out to anybody yet. So it's like, start with, let's really make it be the epicenter of the cutting edge treatment of depression and anxiety. and that your protocol and your measurements, that you look at it, just like Daniel was able to really pioneer the brain scans, and only after having done it, see the patterns. Like when he's seen enough brain scans of people with ADD, he can recognize that ring that's one of the biggest markers of it. That if you have your index that you've created, and that in that, when you look at that's the first thing that you do for people with anxiety and depression, that you've got this marker that without fail, the people who are anxious and depressed have high elevated levels of this, and this, or it's some underlying toxin like this, or this, or infection like this, or this. And so you're creating that sort of index. And then you've also got the contrast of the people who have gone through your protocol and changed those markers, and they're gone. So if you have a cumulative, cumulative kind of index, a score, if you have certain weighting on something and you create a score that is some combination of those things, that if you're able to take their score from a 10 to a 4, that there's no depression and anxiety among people with that score 4 or lower on this Dobrynski Depression Index.
The whole thing is interesting because here I'm thinking about how can I go out and actually, create the largest impact, right, by spreading this out. And there's no doubt about it that I would have impact on a lot of people, but with actually doing it this way, reverse engineering, and actually having a prototype, first of all, too, because it will have to be a higher price point. Mm-hmm. There'll be, less people in order to obviously profit and, keep the engine going, so to speak.
Yeah. But then also because it's based on this protocol that maybe it costs $4,000 or whatever it is to do it, that maybe because of all the evidence and all the things that you have, that somebody could then listen, in 80% of the cases, these things were definitely present, right? Like the inflammation. Right. But in some rare cases, there was toxic issue or there was infection. So it's more common that there's inflammation, right? And that the diet and the nutrients and the exercise could, for 70% of the people, get the result. And maybe if it doesn't, then they can escalate up to the next level. Right? I mean,
yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely.
But you start with the polls, right? We start with let's solve it at the highest level. Let's solve it for certain,
Yeah, definitely. Use all the testing we can. Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense, Dean. You're a smart guy.
But that way, you build a track record, and you build you're pioneering something, right? And that's really that's an important thing. It's like there's no disputing that Daniel Amen is the leader in brain scanning, because he basically pioneered the whole thing, right?
Right, without a doubt. Yeah, we've done. I think he's been in business. It'll be 30 years. And
yeah.
Over 150,000 images of the brain we've done.
Right.
Which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah. And I think that whole thing, now it's like you've got, now it's almost like you can recruit people initially. Like I would look at going with levels of magnitude, that you're starting with 1 and, doing this, really creating the case that you could probably, if you've already been helping people like this, or have you been helping people already with this?
So this is looking at depression and anxiety. Let's just call it depression, as far as what's being done in the field right now, right? Using these different modalities. Unfortunately, most people end up going to a GP, or maybe they go to a psychiatrist, and unfortunately, they don't do testing, especially not in this depth. And that's why there's such a huge problem. It's, Russian roulette with the different medications.
Try
not
this
getting
pill.
to root cause. Yeah.
Try this. Yeah.
Right.
Does that work better? Yeah.
So, that's a huge part of the problem with the medical model is they're not looking. They're not doing any investigative work with, into these different areas where it's actually where the root causes are.
Mm-hmm. And so I think when I was saying about the levels of magnitude here, that, looking at taking one as your N of one and really going, documenting everything, and then looking to duplicate that with 10 people and do a study of 10. And that's going to really give you the thing, because if it happens that way, then you can ramp up to 100, But part of the thing is not jumping magnitudes until you've crossed the levels, like not thinking, because you're thinking big, you're thinking helping thousands of people, but we haven't done the actual documentation of helping one yet.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
So it's not going away. Right. Depression and anxiety is not a fad. It's not a fad that's a short-term thing that's happening. It's a solid thing that's going to be around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So patiently building the the approach to it is really going to be a big win. Because the thing is, the more, the truth is, the faster that you can start documenting and getting the result, like the faster you can get a 30, 60, 90-day case study on it, that really leads the way for you to get the next people in and extend your lead patient to the 6-month results and the 1-year results, and the, that they're constantly improving,
Yeah, taking them from, where they are, not to just getting it back to normal, but getting them to, a point where they're optimized.
Yes.
Yeah, that's absolutely the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least for me it is, Not getting people to just feeling good. I mean, most people walk around and think they feel good, but no, we want to be able to take people, so they feel great, right? I mean, so that way they're better parents, they're better coworkers, better business owners, et cetera, and they're giving back. The healthy people they're just able to not only have a better life for themselves, but they can create more around them and give more back.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is great, because I think that part of when I'm saying about taking the care, the time is really to, as you're doing this, as you're getting these panels where you're getting somebody's, you just look at just those 4 of inflammation, of toxicity, infection, or I had another one on there that
so it's deficiencies, inflammation.
Okay. Yeah. So those, nutrients, right? Nutrient levels, right? That those things, if somebody looked, if you were to take those numbers, and even my frustration with getting lab reports from the doctor is typically they're all on the lab things. They give you back the things, they share the numbers. He's circled and checked and done, he's explained, well, this looks good, your CRP is good, your A1C is, come down, that's good, all these things. But I don't have if you were to create a report or a narrative that goes around these things, that you're educating somebody about the things so that they know that there's a where they are on the progression, right? Like as if they're saying that, as far as inflammation, this is a big key. These markers are showing that you have inflammation. Now these, you can affect those by this and this, right? These are the things that we're going to focus on with that, and we can expect to bring that down to this range. So now we're putting a scorecard on something and targets on something that feels like it's just this, blob that's surrounding them, this cloud that's around them.
And I think,
that I think gives hope.
Yeah, you hit on a good point. And that's exactly what I was going to say, is that the one thing that I've learned from what our images do in our clinic is that it brings compliance up and stigma down, because people now see that, it's not in their head and that they're actually sick, and it's a biological problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's the thing. It's not just, okay, Margaret, we got to get you eating better, not so much on the cookies. And
right.
Right? I mean, really, that's it's a judgment and shame thing. And it's very vague with better. We got to get you eating better. Right? But if you're showing like when you link the diet stuff to these foods cause inflammation, this is what's getting your number up there, and these foods do not. These foods actually calm inflammation.
Yeah, the other thing that you brought up too, I think that's overstated, is just people, they're just hit so much with diet, right? That they kind of just blow it off and think the advice is just general advice. But as you mentioned, if you can actually show them some numbers, and they change those numbers according to what you're actually using. You're using food to change, inflammation, and show that to them. Then it's empowering.
Yes. And that's the thing, because otherwise it's just, it's also, and I think that the general thing of diet and we got to eat better is also on a deeper level, probably for the doctors as a external blame mechanism, right? That it gives them an escape valve, that they're saying, well, it's, their diet. They just got to.
Yeah, and then they tell them, well, go ahead and just eat better and exercise.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Are you eating better? Are you exercising? But quantifying it, like getting somebody has a step counter, a Fitbit with the steps that they're living, that they're getting 1,000 steps a day, and knowing that in order to get that up there, what would be a difference if you get to 5,000 or 7,000 steps a day,
Right.
Yeah. I think you got a big thing. It's just, I think it's going to be taking the time to really revere what you have and treat it as as the leading edge.
Yeah, you definitely give me a lot of things, really just turn it on its head and give me a lot to think about, creating an actual, viable testing protocol. Versus taking them step by step through programs and just starting with, general advice.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's so. What's your recap?
Well, I think what was I'll tell you, not such a recap, but I think an insight and focused on marketing, right? It's even though my focus is to go out there and make a huge impact of all these people that have depression, starting with the locale, whether it's Chicago and whether it's Oak Brook, and focusing on that first makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
To start there and then making an impact. And then it'll be, once you do that and make that impact, it's going to be easier to go outwards with it, because you've already made an impact in a certain location or locale.
Yes.
So that was it was a very big insight. And then also having these, and this is one of the reasons I put the protocol together, was to be able to have the testing to show people that it's not in their head, but actually to put it together as a protocol and work with people, just on a smaller scale to get better results and to actually prove it.
Yes. That's awesome. I just think that's going to make such an impact in the world. If you can help people with that, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's and who knows what you can do with it once you have it. Yeah. I mean, this is something obviously that you can go on and educate other practitioners on to get them to employ in their practices, and maybe that's the way I impact millions of people.
That's exactly it. Maybe that's exactly it. Is that what you've got? Is this protocol? And maybe it's just the same way, just like Daniel's got with the clinics all over the country. You could have that same thing, or that the protocol is through that you've got other doctors in the top 100 markets in the country that are helping people in their market. Yeah,
it's another thing to think about, right? Wow, it's interesting insight we just had there. At least I did.
Syndication, yeah. Syndication is a great thing, because ultimately somebody's going to need the hands-on and the personal attention.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there are a lot of doctors out there in the field, and that's what they love to do. For me, again, it's focusing on big and trying to make a huge impact, but maybe I do it to these other people. And I will tell you something, that not only is it having the protocol, but also having the marketing that goes along with it. Because I will tell you, I know a lot of practitioners. And most of them do not understand business marketing strategy, et cetera.
Right.
They suck at it. And so maybe this model could be put together with the marketing model and have a whole system for practitioners.
Agreed. That's exactly right.
All right, Dean.
Lots to think about. Good.
Yes, this has been great. I appreciate your time and your insights, your expertise. It's been wonderful.
Thanks, Kevin. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, Dean.
Thanks.
Bye.
And there we have it. Another great episode. I really love this thought of starting with an N of 1 study. Whenever you've got something that you can package up, that you're going to duplicate, that you're going to, transfer to other people, it's always about starting with the very best solution to get the result that you want, and then packaging that, documenting everything that's going to happen, and then do it again, right? So that you can see that it works in a, duplicatable kind of way. Now you're ready. Now you've got what we call that scale ready algorithm that you can take to anywhere that you want. So that is a, totally transferable concept that would work for no matter what you're doing, anything you're doing to help other people get a result through your methods. So, I think will be a really good thing for you to do is to get a sense of the 8 profit activators here. And if you go to breakthroughdna.com, I have a whole video there that's a 1-hour video that gives you a great overview of all of the 8 profit activators and the before unit, during unit, and after unit. And while you're there, you can download a copy of the Breakthrough DNA book that explains how the 8 profit activators are either growing or slowing your business right now. And that'll be a good start. And then if you want to be a guest on the show here, just go to morecheeselesswhiskers.com and you can click on the Be a Guest link. And that will take you right to an area where you can tell me about your business, and then we can get together and work on your marketing. So that's it for this week. Have a great time. I'll talk to you next time.